The cliffs of Avonshire had always whispered stories, of sailors lost at sea, of lovers who never returned, of promises made and broken in the salty wind. Catherine Merrick stood at the edge of the world, where land met endless ocean, staring into the grey expanse that had stolen so much from her. Her gloved fingers gripped the iron railing, cold and rusted by years of brine and time. It had been 7 years since she last saw Frederick Ames, and yet, in moments like these, she felt him near, as though the sea carried fragments of his voice back to her. 7 years ago, Catherine was young, impressionable, and drowning in the expectations of a family that prized lineage over love. Her father, Sir Wilton Merrick, had once declared, "No daughter of mine shall throw herself away on a sailor without a name." Her mother, long past, might have understood, but all Catherine had then was her heart, and the heart, they told her, was a foolish compass. Frederick had asked her to come with him, to wait, to believe in a future uncharted but full of promise. And she, her voice trembling, eyes averted, had told him no. The wind had taken her words before they reached his soul. Time had a way of eroding certainty, but not memory. Catherine never married. Suitors came and went, all well-bred, all proper, none of them capable of stirring her heart the way Frederick had by simply brushing a rose petal from her hair. It was in the spring of her 27th year when she first heard the name again. "Captain Ames," whispered Mrs. Landry, the local grocer's wife, her eyes round with the thrill of gossip. "Returned from India. Quite distinguished, I hear. Decorated for valor. And wealthy." Catherine pretended not to hear. Pretended that her breath hadn't caught. Pretended she hadn't imagined the sound of his voice at least once every week for 7 years. And then the letters began, left anonymously in her family's bookshop, always tucked into the pages of poetry. Rilke, Shelley, Blake. "Do you still walk the cliffs? Some memories are embroidered into the wind. I never blamed you. No name, no signature. But the rhythm of the handwriting, the melancholy of the phrasing, it was his. She knew it as she knew her own name. Lady Audley's annual masquerade was the talk of Avonshire. Nobles, artists, officers, all masked, all pretending to be something else. Catherine wore a gown of pale blue silk, like the colour of the sea before a storm, and a mask embroidered with silver leaves. He was there, tall, composed. The navy blue of his coat rich against the gold trim. His mask covered only half his face, but it could not hide the eyes that once cried silently when she turned away from him. He did not approach, but he watched. She felt it with every heartbeat. When the music swelled, she found herself dancing with Lord Heyburn, a polished boor who droned on about Parliament. But her gaze flickered past him, always returning to Frederick. When she turned to leave, she found a small slip of parchment in her glove. "There was a time you danced only with me." He came to the bookshop days later, under the guise of purchasing a volume of naval chronicles. Catherine's hands trembled as she wrapped his selection in brown paper. "I thought you might not come," she said softly. "I thought you might not want me to." Silence stretched between them, heavy and unsaid. "I read every word," she whispered. "Every letter you left." He looked at her then, not the polite gaze of an old acquaintance, but the deep, searching stare of a man who had waited 7 years to look into the soul of the woman he once loved. "I wrote them when I thought I could let you go," he admitted, "but every line betrayed me." She stepped around the counter, closer than decorum allowed. "Why didn't you sign your name?" "Because I was afraid," he said, "that after all this time I was only a ghost in your memory." It rained the day she found him by the cliffs, standing where they had once said goodbye. The sea thrashed against the rocks below, and the sky cried with them. "You still come here," he said without turning. "Not to mourn," she replied, "to remember." He took from his coat a letter, folded, worn, the paper softened by time. "I wrote this the day I left. I never posted it. I didn't know if I wanted you to read it or forget me." She opened it with care, her eyes scanning the ink faded by years. If you ever doubt my love, know this. I would have waited a lifetime. I would have fought every storm. All I ever wanted was your yes. Tears welled in her eyes, falling silently. I said no because I was afraid, she said. Afraid of losing everything. I didn't realize I was giving up the only thing that ever truly mattered. He reached for her hand. Do you still love me? I never stopped. They married in the quiet of spring beneath the old willow tree where they had first dreamed of forever. There was no crowd, only a few close friends, and the ghost of years lost. Catherine wore a simple dress, her mother's locket, and a smile that finally reached her eyes. Frederick stood tall beside her, not the lost boy of 7 years past, but a man who had returned home, weathered but whole. The swing still hung from the willow, and after the vows he pushed her gently, her laughter mingling with birdsong. I spent so long writing you letters in my mind, she said. And now, he asked, now I'll never stop speaking them aloud. They kept the letters, bound together with a ribbon, placed on a shelf in the shop. Visitors often wondered at the worn little book with no title. Catherine would smile and say, "It's a story about waiting," and the courage to return. And sometimes when the wind blew in just right, the sea would echo with the faintest whisper. She said yes.